Hello traders, how's it going? This is Rob Reinhold, and it is June 7th. Before we jump into June 7th's activity, if this is your first summer trading, welcome. Understand that summer trading is a little bit different. Now, I've been trading for 25 years, so this is my 25th, 26th summer, and I gotta say that years ago, summer trading was actually not all that good because a lot of the professionals went away. And it just wasn't very active. Volume and volatility both dropped. However, over the last 5 to 10 years, as more computerized algorithmic trading has become popular, we're starting to see that there's really not much difference between summer trading than regular trading. So let's take a look and see what the markets did specifically today. Now, yesterday we had a down day in equities. And I said, I know with our stock and options group, yesterday, I said this market, in my opinion, this equity market is out to screw everyone right now. And what I mean by that is just when you think there's a breakout, it's going to fail. And just when you think we're rolling over and going back down, it's going to rally. And that's literally what we had today. If you take a look at the candle today, at one point, we were right down at the lows. And those lows, if they broke, there was just a bunch of people saying, oh no, we're not going to be able to hold the gains. Yesterday, we were just about to break out of the highs. And we failed miserably and sunk back down. I expect this kind of price action to be happening in equities over the next couple weeks. I am not jealous of equity traders here. I think it's going to be a tough slide here. I think you either need to be very short term or longer term where you're going out 2 to 3 months. I think the equity market is pretty treacherous right now. But let's cover some of the news that happened overnight because we did hear from the Reserve Bank of Australia last night, and they were expected to hike 1/4 point, and they hiked 50 basis points, which was a big surprise. So the Aussie definitely got a bid off of that news, and the yen has continued to go lower. And let's take a look at cryptos here because crypto's price action was pretty interesting today in the fact that it was weak. And then we recovered. It was actually a really ugly day. Now, I know these candles are kind of hard to see and keep this into perspective, but there's basically about a 6% range from high to low here. That's a big range. It's a very big range. We are still in this low base. Cryptos still look terrible. But whenever we see these long lower shadows, it's telling us that there are buyers out there lurking. You can see we got big long lower shadows here, and it led to a couple days of buying. I'm thinking that this is also maybe going to lead to a couple days of buying. But that being said, I don't think you can get too excited about that because, resistance is maybe 2-3% higher. So while cryptos had a nice bounce today off the bottom, I just still think it's way too early to even think about buying them. Not even talk about. We're not even going to talk about buying them, but even the thinking about talking about buying them. It's way too early. Do not be sucked into this move because every move has failed miserably in cryptos. We need to see a reversal of that pattern. So this week we are at a good solid 0 for equities. We said we think that this is going to be one day up, one day down, one day up, one day down, breakouts failing, breakdowns rallying. And that's pretty much what we've had this week. I don't expect it to be any different. On the calendar for the rest of the week, as you see, we did get the RBA announcement here. Nothing tomorrow, so there's just nothing over the next 24 hours on the calendar. So for those of you news traders out there, the next thing to get ready for is the ECB rate statement and press conference on Thursday morning. So let's take a look at the currency market. Let's look at all these currencies on an individual basis and rank them from best to worst. Now, this was our velocity score as of last night at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And Ankit laid out very nicely that the Canadian dollar was showing the most strength and the yen and the Swiss franc were the weakest. So he talked about pairing those together. So CAD yen and CAD Swiss franc. Also, the pound and the dollar were showing +2s. Those were also in play. But let's see what actually happened over that 24 hours. Let's take a look first at cryptos. Cryptos were at a +1, mean mildly positive or break even. And you can see that's basically what we got. Litecoin had a decent run. Solana was weak. Cardano was strong, but Bitcoin and Ethereum just flat. So really nothing going on in currencies like we expected. In Forex, we did have the yen and the Swiss franc as the two weakest currencies. So this is why we're such big believers in Maverick at trend following, is because they keep going. Trends last longer than you think, and you just need to identify those trends and play those setups. And CAD was not the strongest currency. Strongest currency ended up being the Aussie because of that rate raise. And surprisingly, the pound has decided it wants to play. The pound had been dead for the last month or two, and all of a sudden the pound is starting to perk up and look like it's possibly going to be one of the stronger currencies over the next week or two. I think it's a little too early to make that call. We'll take a look at the charts here. And the poor sad Kiwi cannot get going. Look, this backdrop, everything is going right for Kiwi strength. Here's the problem. It's not strong. And we pointed that out the last couple of weeks that the Kiwi just cannot catch a bid. So don't think it's going to change. Remember how we talked about jumping onto trends? This isn't a trend. The Kiwi cannot go higher. It just will not. Now look, we have no idea what's going to happen in the future. It might change tomorrow. But look, to guess now is just a guess. And we don't guess at Maverick. We make trades based on the market in front of us. So let's take a look at the market in front of us. Let's start out with the cryptos. Now, as you can see here, over the last 24 hours, it's been a move up, a big move down, and a big move up. If you are a range trader, if you are looking at cryptos and saying, hey, I'm a range trader, and this is actually really appealing price action, great, then go ahead and trade it. If you are a range trader, you can absolutely look to take a short on Bitcoin once it hits this resistance area. And if it breaks above, I guess you can go long. I'm not going to go long. But for me, this is just range trading. So if you're looking at any of the cryptos, I think you're just basically saying, I admit they're in a range. I admit that they're not going anywhere at the moment. And I'm going to play the range. Which again, that's what a range trader does. They're not trying to catch trends. They're simply trying to buy at support, sell at resistance levels. So as you can see here, really nothing going on in cryptos other than a range. Let's switch over to Forex because there's much more going on in the Forex market. I'm going to pull up the dollar first. And the dollar was showing a little bit of strength. Now look, you can see this is a 4-hour chart. So 8 hours ago, the dollar topped out. So for 16 hours, the dollar was strong. And then when the US equities opened, the dollar became weak. And at this point, we're basically at a 0 or a -1 on dollar. We have broken below the parabolic SAR. The EMA has flattened. The RSI has flattened. So, this is basically a neutral at best. So dollar is out of play for me. It doesn't give me a big enough score of direction and velocity. So it just says, I'm going to throw you away for the next 24 hours. I'm going to focus elsewhere. Let's pull up yen here. Now, yen has been very weak. We called for the yen to be the weakest currency this week. And you can see there's been virtually no bounces. It's been straight down on the yen. Now, this is it's always a difficult trade. And I remember being a younger trader years and years ago. And these were the hardest trades for me to catch because I would always say to myself, Rob, you missed it. You missed it, Rob. Like right here. Oh, you missed it. You missed it. That was the entry point. And now it's lower than that. And I can't enter it because I'm kicking myself for not entering it back here. And now it's like, I don't want to be chasing it. I don't want to chase it. And then you watch them continue to go down and down and down. Or on the flip side, when they're strong, to go up and up and up. That was the hardest trade for me to learn how to make, is how to make a trade in a very strong trend. So I'm looking at this one here, and what I'm seeing is we had a low base for 16 hours. We got 4 candles here at a low base, and we broke below that low base. This trade is enterable right now, in my opinion. Right now. We are seeing We don't want to get in after a big, huge red candle like this one. We want to wait for a base or a rally, and then we want to sell into this. So for me, yen is ready to go. Absolutely ready to be shorted. Swiss franc was also the other currency that we had as a short this week, and it has done very poorly, which is great because we have been short the Swiss franc. Same thing here. We have now had 16, 20 hours down here where we are basing at this level. I think we could stay in this area for the next 8 to 12 hours. But I do think that as soon as the Swiss franc breaks below this, then it's time to go short here. Now, this is the Swiss franc basket. We will take a look at the Swiss franc against individual currencies here in a second. Right now, the euro has been at zero for me for a very, very long time. And I got to say that, we talked about it. This was a very, very weak downtrend. And now we're getting just kind of the opposite. We're getting a very, very weak uptrend. The uptrend is a little steeper. So I do have to upgrade my outlook on euro. I was at a 0. Now I'm at a +1. But that's about it. It's not ready yet to pull the trigger. It's not showing it's the strongest currency out there. Let's flip over to the pound, because the pound has started to show us that it was moving lower here for a while, and we have now broken out. We do have to recognize that we are at some resistance areas here. If we take a look at prior resistance areas, we can see that there are some right around where we just hit. For me, all I'm waiting for is this thing to break out. There will be a level of resistance up here, but I think it's far enough away that I think that could be a decent trade in here. So pound for me is very close to triggering, but at this point, we just had a big run. We're likely to either base here or pull back, and I think you want to be a buyer of that pullback if we get it, which will probably come back down to this area right here, or a breakout of this last little swing high. So pound is close, not quite yet for me. Next up is the CAD. Now the CAD is the mirror image of the yen. You could have kicked yourself for not buying it back here and back here. And now here it is. You're saying the same stuff. It's too extended. It's gone too far. Look, none of us have any idea when this trend is going to change. And remember, this currency is going up because there is currently a lot more buyers than sellers. Every single 4-hour candle, that's been the case except for 1 or 2. That will change at some point, but you know that right here, right now, if you make a trade, you know for a fact that you are at least entering in a period of time where there is a supply and demand imbalance to the upside. For me, it's just a matter of, does this fit my criteria? It's hard to really look at this and say, oh, was there a base? There's nothing, because we've just basically floated higher. At least here you could have said, hey, I'm buying a high base breakout. And at least here you could say, I'm buying a pullback. Here, it's just nothing. It's the Asian session, so I would say don't enter in the Asian session. But we do have 3 candles here that do have the same resistance area. A breakout above that is a clear buy for me. So CAD is looking fantastic. Next up is Aussie. And the Aussie got a little boost from the RBA. And you can see everything is looking great here on Aussie. We just broke out of this resistance area. For me, Aussie is ready to go right now. CAD, I'm saying wait a little bit. Pound, I'm saying wait a little bit. Aussie's ready to go. This thing is ready to go. This is my #1 currency over the next 24 hours. And let's check in on the poor, sad, sickly Kiwi. It cannot get going anywhere. This backdrop is what should be running the Kiwi. It's not. So just put the Kiwi on the shelf and focus on the rest. There's not many changes to make to our velocity board. We did see the Aussie jump up, and it's right there with the CAD. We did see the euro strengthen a little, and we did see the dollar fall down to a neutral. So going into the next 24 hours, it's very clear. Aussie yen, CAD yen, Aussie Swiss franc, CAD Swiss franc. So that's exactly what we're going to take a look at for possible trades, are those 4 crosses. Aussie is the number 1 on my list, so I am going to my number 1 pair, Aussie Yen. All right, we have the same problem here on Aussie Yen. I'm going to go down to a 1-hour chart here for my entry. But there were some clear entry points here over the last 24 hours. We had a nice high base breakout where we based sideways for almost an entire day and then broke out. We did also get a nice pullback here. That was a nice buy entry point. So at this point, yes, we're up near the highs. We just had a run. We don't want to chase it up here. But what we want to do is we're now waiting for pullbacks and bases. We have no idea what we're going to get. No one knows the future. But likely, if this thing is going to go higher, we are going to get pullbacks or bases. So it's just a matter of waiting and watching for this. A breakout above 96 is a clear buy. If you want to stick your order out there, go long Aussie Yen at 96. I think that's a great place. I think it's more likely to base than to pull back, but we have to be ready for either. If it does pull back, then again, we want to wait for some signals. We want to see some nice candlestick triggers. We want to see some triggers with some of our indicators. We just have to wait and see what that pullback brings. I'm also going to take a look at Aussie Swiss franc. Now, this is a little trick we have at Maverick. If you don't know this one, you should know it already. Whenever you're looking at currency cross, and the question is, okay, well, I want to buy Aussie, but do I want to buy it against the yen or do I want to buy it against the Swiss franc? Well, look, all you need to do is pair up the 2 currencies you're wondering about. Pair up Swiss franc yen. And what this will do, this will tell you which one is actually stronger. Now, you could see over the last 10 hours, it's been about the same. But when you take a look at over the last couple weeks, the Swiss franc has actually been stronger than the yen. We're big believers here, relative strength and weakness at Maverick. So Aussie yen is still the preferred trade. But Aussie Swiss franc, let's build a trade setup off this. Same thing here. We just had a run. So we're likely to see a pullback or a base. I think we're highly likely to see a base instead of a pullback. So a buy above 70.40, that's going to be the trigger there on that one. And let's come over here to CAD yen. CAD yen, we had a nice base earlier on a breakout. It looks like we're forming another one here. 105.90. 105.90 is going to be the point on this one. If you want to put an alert out there or an order out there, I think that's where you want to jump on long in this one. Now, the one other currency I do want to go through. I'm not going to go through CAD Swiss franc. I'll let you do that on your own because I want to actually go through pound. The pound is a currency that I had on the shelf for about 2 to 3 weeks. And I said, hey, it needs to prove to me that it wants to go higher. It is now proving it to me that it wants to go higher. So it is now in my basket of currencies that I can trade. I want to trade against the yen, and this is just a beautiful high base forming. Beautiful high base here. You're just looking for a buy signal, 167.10 or 167.15. Somewhere in there, that's your buy point. I like this one. I still think Aussie is going to be a bigger trade on a percentage basis. But for those of you that say, hey, you know what? I'm not feeling Aussie right now. Go take a look at the pound. It's got some nice momentum to the upside. So to wrap this up, I think the equity markets are 50-50 here. What I mean by that is flip a coin. It's going to give you better odds than whatever you can figure out. That's where I think the market is right now. I think it's going to be one day up, one day down. Where we are in a week, flip a coin. Flip a coin. I usually have a very strong opinion, but sometimes the market, as we say at Maverick, trade the market in front of you. It just isn't too clear right now. Aussie, CAD long, that's a clear one. I do like pound. That says euro. That should say yen, Swiss franc short. So just in your mind, that says yen, Swiss franc short. And neutral to cryptos. No reason at all to be a hero. We talked about don't catch a falling knife. Let that knife hit the ground before you pick it up. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Happy trading.